Greetings everybody, it's been a while. I bet at least 3 of you had a random afternoon thought, wondering what happened to me. Well, both a lot and nothing has happened. On one side, outside of my YouTube channel, in work and whatnot, a lot has happened. Remember that interview I did 5 months ago? Since then, I've actually joined Daniel and Justin as a co-founder. So that's the main reason why I really haven't been posting as much as I used to. Because you know, as you'd expect, I'm putting in a lot more hours into a business when being an owner than I would as a part-time contractor like I was before. That said, I still don't want to give up working on Brane Engine or any of this other YouTube stuff. I just have a lot less time to work on it than I did before because I'm currently pushing a pretty large project to be open sourced as soon as possible. So that said, what have I gotten done on the engine in the last 9 or so months since I last posted a video? Well, I got Brane script 90% finished, half wrote some updates, and even filmed some updates on it. And I was so close to done with it that I was actively adding it into the engine. But as I was doing that, I found several features missing from the language that I still needed to implement before adding it fully into the engine. And those last few features, mainly to do with arrays, were just causing a ton of pain and just taking forever. Combine that with what was happening at work, and I wasn't really making any progress on the engine anymore. So basically, I've given up on Brane script, not because I wouldn't be able to finish it or not get it working or anything, but just because I don't really have the time to invent a language anymore. I realized I was bound by the laws of the universe, particularly time, also being immortal. I also made the mistake of trying Rust. In the past, I've avoided Rust because I was pretty sure that the instant I touched it, I would just go, this is the most perfect thing ever. I must only use this language. And guess what happened? Like, I still use a lot of other languages because I need to for my job and because most of the engine is still written in C++ and it doesn't make sense to fully rewrite it in Rust, as funny as the meme would be. But I was immediately like, oh, this language, just by being what it is, immediately solves like 80% of all the memory issues I've spent like half of my debugging time tracking down. Also, the way that they do constructors and destructors and just all the move and copy semantics is just amazing. Chef's kiss. I'm immediately stealing it to use it in my entity component system because I was using a system similar to C++'s whole constructor thing, though I don't think I fully understood how C++'s constructors and destructors worked when putting that all together, and I do understand it better now, so I could rewrite that to be better. But again, it is due to Rust that I realized what I had wrong with the entity component system at the moment. But all that aside, what does Rust have to do with scripting? Isn't it a low-level, compiled to a binary, not run through an interpreter, definitely not a scripting language? Well, yes, but also no. Rust is technically what's called a first-class citizen, I think that's the term, of the WebAssembly ecosystem, which is a fancy way of saying it compiles to WASM good. And yes, that means I kinda do have to eat my words here because in my last video, or at least whichever video I talked about making my own scripting language from scratch, I did kind of diss WASM a little bit, like, oh, it's so unfinished and not stable enough, and you know, it makes so much more sense to just build my own language. I still kind of stand by that because a lot of the features that ended up having to use for WASM are still like in their experimental phases. And the runtime I ended up going with, well, the 2 that I'm currently debating, anyway, a lot of those are just barely out of their experimental phases, and still I have to enable experimental flags to get those even working in the way that I need them to for the engine. So in a sense, it's good that I waited until now to try using it. And I learned a ton by making my own scripting language. But I realized right now, since I don't have as much time as I used to, it's a lot more important to make quick progress on stuff than to teach myself how to make a scripting language, though I have now taught myself how to make a scripting language. There are a few other reasons why I didn't just jump for WASM from the beginning. One of them is I just really don't like JavaScript, and WASM, like all its branding and stuff, is very closely tied to JavaScript, and that kind of just completely turned me off from the entire thing. The other, and probably more substantial reason, was at the time I was working for Brane Engine, and their whole thing is they're making a WebXR game engine, where the core runtime is compiled to WASM. So while working there, I had a verbal agreement with them to not compile my engine to WASM. So, you know, obviously me compiling my engine to WASM as well would make my stuff a direct competitor to theirs, thus, you know, not in the best interests of me as an employee having a competing open source product to their proprietary engine, while having access to the source code of their proprietary engine. Though, now that I'm not working there anymore, deleted the source code, I never really looked at the runtime code in the first place or how it was all compiled. But yeah, now that I'm not working there, there is a fair chance that I do try to compile the engine to WebAssembly, especially now that I am using WebAssembly for the scripting, so theoretically it's as easy as trying to mscript and compile the code that I already have, get that working in the browser, and then the scripting system would just work like it always does. Or will. But don't get me wrong, I still am cheering on the Wonderland Engine guys because they're awesome people and awesome developers. Only wish the best for them. Anyway, main takeaway there, I'm using WASM now instead of a custom scripting runtime. And over the last couple of weekends, because this is still a very recent decision, like out of the whole 9 months since last video, it's like the last month and a half has been me researching WASM. So over the last couple of weekends when I've had time, I've been, you know, researching all of the, all right, how do we use Rust macros to insert all of the like bindings I need for interacting with components, and then okay, how do we extract those macros to be able to determine, okay, this function is a system or this function is just exported, all of that sort of stuff, so I can actually use it in the engine, and also figuring out how to like share memory between modules. That's actually really hard to do in WASM. All of which I'm gonna throw into another video once I have that finished and whatnot. On that topic, to start making videos again, we're gonna be switching to a format a lot more like this, where I just turn on the camera, I talk to it, and there's a lot less retakes, a lot less editing. No green screen for now. I might throw the green screen back in once I get on a more regular posting schedule. But yeah, instead of a studio quality production, we're now going back to basement gremlin mode. In fact, the reason why I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt is 1, I now have a Hawaiian shirt. 2, it fits my Florida man aesthetic. 3, it is holding the lapel mic through the buttonhole. Because otherwise I would be wearing my signature green jacket instead of the green shirt. I'm also going to start posting whatever I feel like. While this whole channel is going to stay mainly focused on the game engine, I'm also going to probably start posting like random tutorials about a cool thing I figured out how to do in C# or whatever, or like how do you read a GLTF from scratch? Like that's a random website post I did recently. Or I might devlog about something I'm doing at work, because we're building an open source product, which means I can talk about the core really cool internals as much as I want to. And as always, I'm gonna keep streaming whenever I have the time, usually on the weekends, probably right after I get this video out too. So if watching me stare at a bug for 2 hours going, why isn't this working? And then switch to another bug for another 3 hours and go, why isn't this working? And then you can tell me to go to bed because it's like 3 a.m. in the morning for me. If that interests you, go to the stream. Also, since it is the video, it is my legal requirement to ask you to like and subscribe, join the Discord. There's a patron, is not really worth anything, like you get a different colored Discord role in the Discord. That's about it. I'm terrible to my patrons. But anyway, that's the end of this video. If you like this format more, tell me. If there's anything else that I'm doing aside from like the engine and whatnot that interests you that you think would also make good videos, tell me in the comments. Obviously, I'm very small, so I read every single comment and all of them will be read. But yeah, until next time, I'll see you guys.